And so for those who are listening on the podcast, hello, and welcome to the Physical Therapy Owners Club podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Shields, and I've got my good buddy, Adam Robin, joining me today. How are you feeling?
Feel charged, man.
Yeah?
Super charged. I had some extra cup of coffee today. So you guys are in luck. And
That'll do it.
and I live in South Mississippi and we actually had like a cool breeze this morning.
Uh-huh.
So I'm fired up, man. Fall's
I'm
coming.
feeling good getting back into business. We got, I spent some time out on the river yesterday, caught a couple silver salmon
Nice.
with my good friend, Jacob Pollard from here in town. Yeah, it was, got to enjoy Alaska.
Good for you.
So, yeah, fun. So we're getting into it. Let's talk about money.
Yeah, why not? Let's do it.
Like you said, I love Will Humphrey's quote, profitability unlocks possibility, right? And it's worth talking about in the physical therapy space because a couple of podcast episodes ago, I had our good buddy Dimitrios Kostopoulos join me and shared some of the data from APTA about not just reimbursement rates, but profit margins decreasing amongst physical therapy clinics nationwide. And not just mom and pop physical therapy clinics, but profit margins for the publicly traded physical therapy clinics as well are decreasing. And that's a first and a trend. They were never really quite increasing significantly over time, but this is the first time we've seen a precipitous drop, right? So it's important that we talk about money because although some people maybe in academia or in the theoretical sphere want to demonize the profit goals that companies and individuals might have, if we don't have the money and the cash flow, we are not making any difference in the world, right? Really hard to do that. We can't all serve like Gandhi and expect to make significant changes in our community. It doesn't happen that way. At some point, people need to eat, right? And achieve some goals. And in order to provide our services, we've got to get that exchange.
I love we need three things to run a business. You need a lot more than that. But my framework is you need people, purpose, and profits.
Mm.
Right? People, we've got to build a company, an organization, a team that serves people. In this profession, I mean, we're in the relationship business. If we're not focused on people, then we're in the wrong business, right?
Mm-hmm.
The purpose is the emotional driver that unites us. And the profits are the fuel, the gasoline or the coal, right, that you put into the engine that actually pushes the engine down the road. So without profits, you're not going anywhere. And it's if you're a practice owner and you're running a profitable company, you're probably one of the best business owners in America because the margins are so thin and you have to watch every penny. And so congratulations if you're doing that. But if you're not doing that, you can actually make money in this game. You just have to be very intentional about it and you have to actually measure it and know where it's at and how to focus your attention on getting it.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up purpose and profits and the connection between the two because it was from a podcast a long time ago, and I know it's one of Eric Miller's presentations about what to do in a cash flow crunch, right? When you're all of a sudden your bank accounts are dwindling and you don't know why. He'll go straight back. First thing you do is to re-engage with your purpose. Okay, what is our purpose? And get the team bought into that purpose. And you have to start there from a foundation. Are we on the same page, right? Do we all agree on blank that this is why we're here and that we want to make a change in the community? Do we all agree on that? Okay, now we can move forward. Now you can start inspiring people, talking to them about what needs to be done next to create a greater impact in the community, how that translates into greater profits, how that benefits them financially, if they're living that purpose to a greater extent than what they previously were. And then you can move forward and you got to start monitoring your cash flow lines. Yeah, the people who are touching the money lines and your connection to revenue, those just have to be monitored on a regular basis. You've been around how many years in ownership, Adam?
5 years.
Yeah. Have you experienced some of the grifting that maybe some dubious employees have taken advantage of, siphoning money off of your clinic yet?
Well, yes. And
it happens.
Money is such a dirty word, right? Like, it's such a mean thing. And I'm kind of recalling so many stories I've had in the past with employees, but people, especially new grads, come out of school and they've been taught for 3 straight years that you must protect your license, right? You must protect and guard it with your life and save it in a safe place and don't do anything risky, because if you do, you're a bad person, right? And some of that is valid. Yeah, sure.
Then they'll also use the refrain of, if you're in this industry to make money,
right?
Again, right? Did you hear that one?
We didn't do this. We didn't become PTs to make money, right?
Yeah, they'll say that.
So that's a hard thing to combat as an owner, right? Because you've got a team who now believes they're trying to guard everything they do to protect their license, right? And they're not willing to do anything risky, quote unquote risky.
According to them,
correct. And they're always going to shy on the conservative side of things, which makes it very, very challenging, right? Very, very challenging, because they understand the negative they understand the negative implications of let's say overbilling or over collecting, right? Because that's unethical, right? And you can go to jail, and that could be considered stealing. All true. But nobody ever talks about the negative implications of underbilling or under collecting, right? Nobody wants to have those conversations. But the truth is, we devalue our profession, right? And when we undersell our service, we have less buy-in from our patients, right? We're robbing the company of profit margin or profitability to help support the vision and support the purpose. So yeah, it's a real challenge for business owners.
I love that concept that you bring it up, because when you're talking about grifting, siphoning, quote unquote stealing, there are the front desk people that might slide a 20 here and there out of the copay drawer, right? Or the copay box. But when you bring that up, where you are losing most of your money is not from people taking cash here and there and putting it in their pocket. It is from providers who underbill. And I had Sean Kirk on a few years ago, and he talked about it, and I totally agree with him. If you are doing these two things, you could consider them unethical as well. And that is, if you know as a doctor of physical therapy that this person needs 3 times a week physical therapy or 2 times a week therapy, and if they came 2 to 3 times a week and that would get them better faster, yet they put up some kind of financial concern, and you alter the plan of care to come in 1 time a week, but you know they would do better at 2 or 3 times a week, and you might not even be able to make as much of a difference in a shorter period of time if you did 1 time a week. To go with 1 time a week is unethical, because you know better. You're the doctor, and you need to hold them to 2 to 3 times a week. Now, what they do with it is up to them, but you can't adjust your plan of care, which is in the patient's best interest, to satisfy their financial concerns. A doctor cannot tell a patient to have their prescription medications and expect the same results, because that would be unethical.
Right.
In the same vein, physical therapists who don't sell a plan of care that's appropriate for the patient to get better faster is unethical. And so that's number one. Number two, for them to give away free services by not accounting for every minute that they provide skilled care to that patient, right? They're not accounting for it all and documenting appropriately for it. That also is unethical, because who are they stealing from at that point? They're not losing any money on their salary.
Mm-mm.
They provided all the services, but they were unwilling, lazy, naive, ignorant. Maybe they're stealing in ignorance, but the fact that they don't know how to bill appropriately and document and support their billing with proper documentation to support the care that they provided, and err on the short side, and like you said, bill conservatively to keep their license. So we're gonna cheat the owner and the business to make us feel better.
Right.
That's unethical as well. Let's just provide the best care that we can. Let's bill for it and document appropriately, and be strong and confident in what we did. Right? And let's not shortchange anybody.
And let's get paid the most we can possibly get paid.
Well, yeah, you can't bill conservatively and then complain that reimbursements are going down.
Right.
Yeah, you can't bill $85 per visit and then complain, well, why did my reimbursement rates go down from $100 to $92 a visit? Because your providers are underbilling.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying that that's not what their services are worth, right? So you have to at some point stop and take a stand, train your team in it appropriately, get them up to speed on appropriate sales of plan of care, which you and I discussed right here just in the last few episodes of how to sell a plan of care and mastering that skill, but also how to bill and document appropriately for their services.
Yeah. I think that where most of the owners, and I'd love to hear your feedback, but most of the owners that I talk to, they understand that that's important. They understand that billing is important and getting their team behind that is important, but they're too fearful to have open conversation about it directly with their team, because they don't want to be perceived as a person who's just after their money.
This meeting is being recorded.
They haven't figured that piece out, right?
Yeah, and that's where you have to finally stand up as an owner and take leadership.
Right.
There are resources. There's not a lot, but there are resources. Rick Gowinda, probably the main resource in this regard,
mm-hmm.
regarding billing and documenting appropriately for plans of care. I came across Anthony Maritato on YouTube. He's got a library of videos on billing for physical therapy. Reached out to him a few days ago, and so I don't know, maybe we'll connect and do something on the podcast as well. But there are resources out there. There's not a lot, but there are compliance programs, BCMS, how to bill, document appropriately. They'll audit your charts, you name it. So it's at that point where if there's a concern and you can do better, hopefully either by listening to the podcast or working with your coach, and if it's us, we're going to tell you that's where you got to spend the time as an owner with your admin time to learn this stuff. And maybe you don't have to learn it. You don't have to be the expert yourself, right? You need to know your way around things, but your job is to find the resources. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in a situation like this where you're training on billing and documenting appropriately, and honestly, we're trying to get providers to up their bills per units per visit, up their charges on a regular basis. That could come across poorly, because
Yeah.
providers could think you're all about the money. You're all about
for
the money.
sure.
Yes, right. So I would recommend, and tell me what you think, is find the videos, find the Rick and Wenda videos, the Anthony Maritato videos, and let them do the teaching, right? Get the third party to talk about it, and then help them understand how, number one, find the resource to get a third party to do it. Number two, make the connection between how increasing our charges per visit feeds into our purpose.
I love what
As a
you said.
clinic or as a profession.
Yeah, I really love what you said about step one is, get agreement around the purpose. Right. And I think, if you read the book Crucial Conversations, they'll talk about this a little bit, because this is a crucial conversation. It's a risky conversation, right? You're about to have an uncomfortable conversation with your team about money. It's a delicate space. And if you read that book, they talk about the first thing that you need to do, or one of the first things that you need to do, is you need to create an area of common ground. You need to create an agreement, right? That we can leverage as context. Like, we're going to create this agreement first before we move forward. And that agreement is that money matters. It's important to what we do. And B, we have a responsibility to provide the value that justifies the amount of reimbursement that we get. Right? So can we agree on that? Can we agree that money matters and that we're willing to provide the value that's needed to justify maximum reimbursement? You got to get that agreement first. We have to have people who say, yes, I agree to that. Once we have that, okay, now we can move forward with how we're going to do this together, right? Mm-hmm. And like you said, tying that to the purpose is really, really important. And I'll also say that I've never really had, it's a scary conversation to have the first few times you have it, but once you have it and you create that culture, mm-hmm. it's you only have to have it a few times, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember having on a guest, and I forget his name, but he said sometimes we lose sight of the fact that the patients that come and see us, honestly, are sacrificing a lot to come to physical therapy a lot of the times. There are plenty of people who don't have a lot going on in their schedule, and so physical therapy, they have the time to do it, but they, number one, they would rather be doing other things. So we should understand that and that their time is sacred. And there are plenty of our patients who, number one, don't want to be there. Number two, their time is sacred in that maybe they're taking time away from family, friends, hobbies, work, childcare, to get to physical therapy on a regular basis. When we understand that they are sacrificing all of this to come to physical therapy 2 to 3 times a week. Yes, they want to get better, but most people would rather take a pill than come to physical therapy, mm-hmm. honestly, right? No one wants physical therapy. So they're doing all this to come to physical therapy, maybe not in the best mindset to even get there a majority of the time. And then in that mindset, it is our responsibility as physical therapists to provide as much value as possible in every single visit in which they come. And that's demonstrated by not only the results that they get, but number two, by the charges that we bill for. We should be providing and appropriately billing for as much physical therapy as we possibly can provide.
100%.
Because that's in the best interest of the patient and also respectful of their time that they sacrifice to come.
I cannot agree more. I mean, that's got to be we've got to agree to that, you know? We got to agree to that.
You know, I just got off a call earlier with Travis Robbins of Next Level PT. Good guy. I've known him for a couple of years, and they're starting to do some collections and billing stuff. And he said, without a doubt, the owners that, number one, know their average reimbursement rate per visit, and number two, know their average billed units per visit, are usually miles ahead of all the other owners in the room. Because a lot of times owners, correct me if I'm wrong in your experience as you're coaching PT owners, but mine is, they're not sure about the first number. They have a ballpark idea, right? But yeah, somewhere between $80 to $95 per visit. And number two, when you ask them, well, what are your average units billed per visit? That's a tough one. They don't know that one. They assume somewhere around 4, but
We try to get 4.
When they usually actually see it, it's usually somewhere below 3, right? Or just above 3. And so those owners that are measuring their financial key stats are the ones that are usually doing pretty well, right? Because that which gets measured improves. That which gets measured and reported improves exponentially. If they're measuring that, they're probably measuring a lot of other good factors, key indicators in their company. But for those financial metrics, those guys are usually doing pretty well.
Yeah. I knew we were going to get to the measuring part eventually, you know. But yeah, I also find that some people don't want to know, you know.
Oh, really?
They think they want to know. But once they realize that, yeah, they have a problem that needs to be solved, it's like, now it's objective. Now they're accountable, right?
Right.
But it takes some discipline to actually measure these stats, because the stats tell the story. And, you know, I tell my directors, manage by the metrics. Stop being emotional about the decisions that you make and make objective decisions consistent with our values, period. And if you are not measuring things, then you are making emotionally based decisions, and you're not clear on the outcome that you want. You have zero control over the outcome. You know, so measuring skilled units is a really, really important stat. Not only that, but measuring your over-the-counter collections, right? Because that's another window in which money is generated over the course of the revenue life cycle. Now, something that really shocked me was when I measured, you know, I ran a statistic, the percentage of gross income that is over-the-counter collections, and it's north of 20% in my practice.
Oh my gosh.
20% of income is collected over the counter. That is a chunk of change, people, right?
That's huge.
Huge. That is huge. And some people think, they try to look at that as a tip. Like, oh yeah, you did a good job. Here's a $20 tip. It's
that's the cherry on top.
That's part of the piece. Like,
no,
if you don't collect that 20%, I mean, you're not even making 20% margins in your practice. Right? So, I mean, if I was running a physical therapy practice, which I am, I would definitely be looking at every single penny that comes over that counter. And I would want that reported to me every single day.
Every day.
Every day. Every day. I would want to know exactly. I mean, it's not that hard. You look at your schedule. There's 10 patients, and you add up all the expected copays that are over-the-counter collections for those visits. And then you just measure what's collected versus what was expected to be collected, and you'll have a percentage, and it should be 100%.
Oh yeah.
Every day.
Every day.
And if you're at 70, 60, 75% or less, I mean, you're looking at thousands of dollars that are missing from your bank account at the end of the month.
Right.
Very, very important. We don't have the flexibility to be flexible at that touch point. We have to collect every dollar that's owed.
Yeah. And I think it was a billing company that shared with me a long time ago that for every dollar that's not collected at the time of service, you're losing immediately within the first month, like 35 cents on that dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if you don't collect it within that next month, you're losing like 50% of that dollar. Right. So it's imperative to get it at the front desk. And that means your front desk person has to be dogged and detailed and really good about having financial conversations with the patients. And like you said, and it's not emotional. And this is an agreement that the patients have with their insurance company.
Correct.
Not you. You're just a conduit, right? And they need to be really clear to say, you have a $20 copay. How can you collect? How would you like
to pay today?
Yeah. How would you like to pay? Not, can we possibly collect the $20?
Would it be okay for you?
Would you mind paying that today? Mm-hmm. It's not a yes, no question.
Right.
You don't have an option here. You're paying it or not. How would you like, you are paying it. How would you like to do that?
And, I think most owners know that, right? They know that they should be collecting over the counter.
Oh yeah.
And if you ask most owners, they'll say, oh yeah, we collect it. But do you measure it?
Oh, and how well are you collecting it?
No. I bet you're not collecting as much as you think you're collecting.
No, you're right. You're right. There's so much I learned over the years, and I'd gone at least 10 plus years without measuring the day-to-day over-the-counter collections, right?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean,
I don't like to think about it anymore.
Can you imagine where you would be today?
Seriously. Oh, there's so much money. But I find it's a simple spreadsheet.
Yeah.
You have a template. Like you said, you've got the patients that are coming in that day, how much their copay, coinsurance, estimated deductible per visit. I mean, yeah, figure out their estimation for collect the deductible up front.
That's right.
Per visit, please. Just do it. Do whatever you have to do to talk to the patient and train the front desk, but just collect it up front so you're not chasing money on the back end. You're losing money as you do it. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, most EMRs have the capacity to keep credit cards on file at this point.
Yes.
There might be a few out there that are straggling. If your EMR does not do that, then there are third parties that will help you do that. Merchant service accounts that will save the credit card information on their software, right? So there's no excuse to not keep credit card on file. And as you do that, number one, really easy to collect the copays and coinsurances and deductibles. You just, hey, you're here, I'm going to charge your credit card on file. Or if you have a cancellation policy, I am going to have to charge you the blank amount for not giving us 24 hours notice. I'm just going to charge, you don't even have to say it, but you charge the credit card on file, right? Mm-hmm. Or if they have a balance at the end of the month, part of your financial policy should be, we charge the balance that's left in your account at the end of the month to your credit card. That would do wonders for your accounts receivable. And honestly, it'll do wonders for your bank account.
That's right.
All this money that you're hoping to get, all of a sudden now you've got some immediate cash flow. It's a lesser portion of the overall amount, 20% in your case, but now it's there and you don't have to wait 30 to 60 to 90 days to collect it. It's there.
I remember being brand new to practice ownership, and I had so many fears about collecting over-the-counter money. I'm sure you did too. Everybody does.
Everyone has some hesitation about the money talk.
Right. Like, because especially in the beginning, you're like, man, I just really need some patience in this door.
I don't want to skip away.
Yeah, man, if I tell them it's going to cost money, then I'm risking losing the patient. And, you know, we're scarred. The profession is scarred.
We are.
You know, but trust me when I say that if you're, that's just one mindset, one of the many mindset challenges that we have to get over as a profession, especially as practice owners. If you're bold enough and brave enough to just push through that discomfort just for a little bit, you'll realize that it doesn't affect your practice at all in a negative way. You won't lose patients. And even if you do lose them, you were going to lose them anyway.
You're going to lose the patients that don't want to pay their bills.
Exactly. Like if they're not willing to pay $20 to see a doctor, a physical, like they're not ready for your care. Right? Like they don't value what you're doing. And it will make an enormous difference if you're just willing to do that, tough it out for a little bit. You'll make a huge difference for your practice. You'll have patients who are more bought in, who are more committed to you. You'll have more money in the bank. You'll be able to get bonuses and raises and buy new equipment and provide new opportunities for your team. So lean into that discomfort.
They are financially incentivized. If they have a large copay or something, they're financially incentivized as you're collecting it to get better faster themselves.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, they might cut out, but are they going to get the results they want? Maybe you have that conversation with them at some point, or the front desk does. And it's not only about the patients valuing your care. I think some of the mindset issue is we question our value. Like, like maybe they're not convinced. Maybe they don't have the confidence in themselves that their services, the PT owner and the providers themselves, that our services are that valuable, that require a $50 copay per visit. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of those out there. And that's maybe an equally, if not greater, mindset challenge to overcome.
100%. So like, it blew my mind. Like, I remember kind of like when I was set free of this mindset, and it was like, it was so great. But like, I used to think to myself, how am I going to charge this woman $100 to come in here and do quad sets? You know what I mean? Like quad sets. And what I didn't realize is this lady has no idea what a quad is. Like, it's only, you don't know how much you know, right? You don't realize how much you know. Like, how many times have we had patients who come in and say, hey, I've got a torn rotary cup, right? Like, they have no idea, not even a close idea of what you know. Like, we take for granted, like, yeah, there's four muscles in the rotator cuff, and this is what they do, and like this is how they work. This is the quads. This is how they work. They extend the knee, right? Like, those things are so elementary to us, and we assume that the patient should understand that already, but they really don't. And that little simple knowledge is worth $100. And convincing yourself of that and selling yourself on that idea is a good way to kind of like set you free from that fear.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and so as we're looking at the money aspect of this, you can see the different areas of your practice where, as they tie together, profit margins can significantly improve, right?
100%.
So looking at, okay, let's just start measuring some key data related to money and the collections of revenue, right? Number two, let's see how we're doing at the front desk. right,
Yeah.
are collecting 100% of the expected copays, co-insurances, and deductibles every day? And are they reporting that every day? And who do they report it to? Are they reconciling it? And when they're not doing it, who holds them accountable if it's not at 100%? Number three, do we know what our billing and collections team is doing on a regular basis? Do you know how to hold your billing and collections team accountable? Do you know how to read the billing and collections reports, your AR agings, right? Do you know what your collections team should have collected this month? Are you doing some forward projections? And I've talked about these on the podcast. And I'm not going to get to them in detail today because we've talked about each one of these things probably in the past 6 months. And then, like we said today, talking to your provider team. Are you tracking the metrics to see how well they are billing and providing services for each and every visit and holding them accountable to the expectations? If you're going to keep a patient there for an hour and 15 minutes on average, you can't be billing 3 units per visit. I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, if you're on timed codes or something like that. And if you're on a $65 capped rate, flat rate plan, and like your typical United Healthcare, I don't know, but every minute over about 45 minutes, you're giving free services at that point. And you got to be okay with that. Either you make some changes or you just agree that you're giving away services pro bono. Or maybe you come up with a different idea regarding those flat rate payers. But once you have that data, and I love that you said you measure things by metrics and not by emotion. Once you have the data that you can follow and track, now you can start pulling some levers and figuring out how to improve each one of those points. Now you're talking about increasing your profits. Well, let's talk about your average reimbursement rate. 5%, 10%. 15%
at least,
and spread that over an entire year, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And it's not going to stop after 1 year, hopefully. After many years, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars by tracking some of these separate issues related to collecting money.
Right. Well, not everybody wants to scale and grow an empire, right? But there are people who want to do that.
What?
Not everybody wants to scale.
No, come on.
But there are people who want to do that.
They want to have their own little kingdoms, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But and these days, it's really hard to just have like a solo practice and have a really nice financial income for the owner. Like you almost have to have multiple locations.
Yeah. If you're gonna be your typical practice, 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. And I've talked about this in the past with my buddy, Sean. There just seems to be a sweet spot. You've got to have about 4 or 5 full-time FTEs, full-time providers. That's where your profit margins seem to be the best in those situations. The expenses are fixed and you cover all your expenses with the first 2 to 3 providers. And then for the 4th and 5th providers, whatever they generate tends to go closer to the bottom line. There seems to be a magic sweet spot there. And so you could do it with one clinic.
Oh, for sure.
But
you could do it with one clinic and you could have a nice, comfortable lifestyle. But if your goal is to open multiple locations, and if you think about it, like you're talking about the difference between opening up a location in 1 to 2 years versus opening up a location in 5 to 10 years.
Right.
Right. So like when you're saving tens of thousands of dollars per year, year after year after year, you're talking an exponential, because those locations generate additional revenue and those locations, right? So thinking about the long game, like this is such a strong skill to have is to kind of have control of these touch points of your money so that you can maximize profitability in your business.
And I want to say here that I learned about some of the stuff through Stupid University and the School of Hard Knocks.
Oh, I did too. I've learned plenty of those.
Right.
I still learn them.
Right. And honestly, I didn't hear a lot about it in the coaching that I received back in the day about this specifically. Will and I kind of figured it out over the years. But I just had a podcast episode with my buddy Steven Rapicelli, and he quoted Alex Hormozy, something to the effect of, you hire coaches so that you can go through the same experience without taking on all the scars, right? So you can learn something without developing the scars as you talk to coaches and consultants, right? You don't have to go through losing money for 6, 12, 18 months before you see a turnaround. And we've seen that in some of our clients, right? We work with them for a couple of months and just had it last week. All of a sudden, well, I had it on Monday and today's Wednesday. Had it on Monday. She's like, yeah, before working with you, yeah, I lost tens of thousands of dollars last year. And now 6, 8 months into 2023, she's had more profit than she's ever seen before, is able to work out and see her kids more often. First time she's done that in a couple of years, because someone on the outside is able to look at your practice and say, pull this lever, do this over here. Let me guide you a little bit over here and give you a different perspective and mindset. Now go. And the world opens up. And honestly, this client is like, I don't know what to, like, the amount of money that's coming is kind of scary. And I don't know what to do with it. Like, now that's the problem you want to have.
Right.
That's a good money problem right there.
Right. Coaching changed my life. It really did. I've, for those who don't know, Nathan was my first coach. I was about a year into private practice, and I was kind of at that stage where I didn't really know where my money was at. I was burning the candle on both ends. I was just working really late, getting up really early. I was exhausted. I was unhealthy, anxious, just unhappy. And Nathan took me in and kind of whipped me into shape. And what I didn't realize was that was the beginning of a transformation. Like I became a different person after that. That was the start of it, right? And since then, I've been able to open I have 3 locations within 5 years. And it's just like, I could have never done that without somebody there to show me, like, to help me recognize my blind spots, to help me like see, like, identify the priority and take massive action. Because I was sitting in my bubble, just spinning, like I was like the dog chasing the tail. Like, the tail's so important. I gotta get that, right? Like, I gotta keep chasing this tail.
Right.
And I was just, I didn't realize it, but I was sacrificing my health and my most important relationships. So if you're on the fence about coaching, I would highly recommend giving that a shot.
Well, the difficult thing, and you and I come across this a lot, is coaching's not cheap, right?
No.
My first coaching bill, I think I had to commit to like $80,000, right? And I was willing to pay for it, and I'd pay for it again. It completely changed my life, like you. Our coaching isn't $80,000 up front, in case you're worried about it, but there's a price tag to it. And I think, and I'm trying to say this the right way, but what you and I know is that as clients come in, a lot of the work that needs to be done is mindset work, maybe perspective. Hey, maybe think about it this way, or maybe you're focused on the wrong thing. Maybe your focus needs to be over here, right? We're guiding. But what clients want to see is, how are you going to make more money?
Yeah. Where's the money going to go?
No, we know that, but we also know that you need to get there by doing a certain number of things, and it will pay off rather quickly if you implement those things. But what they're saying in wanting to gain control of their business or learn how to run my business better is, I want to make more profit. And because that expands the possibility for me personally and as a business. I can expand more, I can do more personally, I can bless my team better if I have more profit, right? All those things are possibilities. And so it's difficult because we're trying to say, listen, you can't see these purchases, whether it's coaching, bringing on a physical therapist, another member of physical therapy to your team, or hiring a front desk person when you don't have one now, these aren't expenses. These are investments that will pay off as you invest in them. The immediate return, it's not transactional like, I saw that patient, now I know I collected $94 because that's my average reimbursement rate. It's not transactional like that immediately, but it is, you invest this money, you are going to 2, 3, 5, 10x your return on that money as you listen and implement it appropriately. And that's where we have to get people to understand, get out of the scarcity mindset, get out of the small business mindset when it comes to money, that there are things that you need to invest in that will generate significant returns for an ongoing period of time.
Yes. You just mic dropped it.
Are we done?
I think you just did it. Yeah, man, I couldn't agree more. It's a scary thing. I remember I had to pay you some money when I first started coaching, and I was like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, what if it doesn't work? You know what I mean?
Right.
And what I found is that I used to search for, the marketing program that would save my business, or I just need the right biller, and the biller is going to solve my problem, or I need, whatever. Right. And it wasn't until I realized that nobody was going to run my business for me. And you can't outsource being a CEO. Like, you have to learn how to be a CEO. And it's not by treating patients and by hustling and just working your fingers to the bone. Like, that's not how to be a CEO. It wasn't until I realized that my focus and my decision-making ability was the limiting factor in my business, right? Mm-hmm. When I can get crystal clear on where my business is at, and I could be more strategic and confident in the decisions that I make, things move very, 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 very quickly.
Right.
As opposed to being kind of like consumed with chaos and anxiety and just like on Google and YouTube trying to figure it out on my own. Mm-hmm. Our ability to get out of that mindset and take massive action quickly is the key. There's no other gimmicks. Like, that is the key. Right? So the answer's right in front of you. You know what I mean?
And when you learn something, it needs to be implemented quickly. Right. If you learn something and you take 6 months to implement it, 12 months to implement it, then you lose power in that thing that you learned, right? And that's the benefit of making quick decisions. You gain power by not having all of the data, but having enough data to make a decision, knowing that you can always redirect and go to plan B, right? There's always an ability to put the car in reverse. Oh, I went down the wrong path, put the car in reverse. Okay, let's go the other way, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes people think that making money decisions are a dead end street. I'm not going to go anywhere, and the clinic's going to fall off the face of the earth. That's typically not the case, right? And so as you're making money-based decisions, do as much as you can with the information that you have, make a quick decision. And if you need to do a little bit of fear setting, and that is, what's the worst possible scenario that could possibly happen? And figure out if you're okay with it or not. I mean, what are the likelihoods that that's really going to happen? It could happen. Maybe there's a 2% chance that it happens. Maybe is that going to be the worst thing? And what would I do if that 2% occurrence actually came up? Right.
Correct.
Have a battle plan around.
You gotta make a plan for the worst.
Yeah, make a plan for your fears. That's what the military does. The worst possible scenario, we need to have a plan C. Mm-hmm. So then move forward quickly. Like, quick action on decisions are important. Otherwise, you become stale. Your team gets jittery. Like, are we going to do this or not? Mm-hmm. You get jittery. It clogs up your mind and your brain space because you have these lingering decisions to make and you can't think clearly. So when it comes to money, like I said in the last little bit, focusing on recognizing where your money decisions are investments versus expenses, where you can expect to get a greater return from that. We did that, not to belabor the point, but we did that in physical therapy. We spent how many tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on physical therapy school with no guarantee that we were going to pass the licensing board and become full-fledged physical therapists with a big enough salary to pay off our school loan debt, right? Yet, and we're willing to put tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars into that scenario, but not invest in ourselves at a smaller amount by hiring a coach, by bringing on support team that could actually consistently, expertly work in their role outside of you, like other physical therapists and front desk people, billers and collectors that have great experience and capabilities. I mean, hiring experts in those other realms only supports you and make your team better, which helps you generate more money, right? So making quick decisions on those, I love that you brought that up.
Yep. I learned a ton about money today.
Yeah. Money's good. And that's why I have Eric Miller on all the time. I love talking money. And there are many different aspects to discuss about it. But as a physical therapy owner, the one thing that I remember Eric saying at the beginning of one of our more recent podcasts in the last 6 months was that you should demand to make a profit. You have to demand a profit from your clinic. It doesn't just come naturally.
Right, exactly. I love that mindset.
You have to demand the profit. That's why you got into it. If you're lazy about it, yes, you will not make as much profit as you could, right? You are losing money if you're not focused on it, right? And you could have a greater impact. So you have to demand your clinic to generate a profit. And in doing so, you have to be very intentional and specific in your actions.
100%. I remember Michael Hyatt said one time that your business will spend to the degree in which the boundaries you set on it.
Oh yeah.
Right. So like if you don't have rigid boundaries, then you're gonna fill it up. You're gonna fill it up with expenses, with inefficiencies, convenience, right? And really it's about being able to set firm boundaries around things that are important and being disciplined enough to hold the line. Right. And when we could do that well, there's money in the bank at the end of the month. And we have to do it every single month and show up
routine
every single week, every single month with discipline and intentionality and direction and focus. And that's how you run a business.
Right. I think some owners are like, if I'm not treating full time, what am I doing? Well, let's start with a half a day, maybe preferably 2 half days. But this is one of those things. You're reviewing the daily collections over the counter. You're looking at your key financial metrics. You are meeting with your billing and collections team, not just from the emailed billing reports every month, but actually talking with them through the billing reports every month. And then working with your providers and maintaining a high level of skilled units per visit, appropriately so, right? These are some of the things that take time. This is one of your jobs as the CEO, right? Or as the owner in a small business that you can't give up. No one else is taking that from you.
Nobody.
Right? And so you have to stay. Those are the things we're talking about in terms of get those parameters in tight. Now you can take those, once you tighten those things up, now you can talk about, okay, now I'm gonna bring on another physical therapist. What do those financial metrics look like? Now you can trust and plan for growth, expansion, etc.
I love it.
Cool. Thanks for joining me today, dude. It's been a great Facebook Live event.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll jump on again in another couple weeks.
Yes, definitely. Do you know the topic for that one?
I don't. Not yet.
Not yet. We'll do some surveys. We'll start doing some research, see what's the top priorities, but we'll get it out there. And if people want to reach out to us, ptoclub.com, you can book a connection call with me and or Adam. and see what we can do for you, see if we can help you out, right?
That's right.
Nathan at ptoclub.com. We finally got Adam's email going, Adam at ptoclub.com. And look forward to our next Facebook Live event in about, 2 weeks?
To a couple of weeks.
All right. Cool, man. Thanks for joining me today.
Yes, sir. Peace out, brother.
You, bro.